The Gospel of Gold by G.S. Lewis. Chapter 38. Tightening Coils. Gold rose to the smell of hot oatmeal the next morning. However, Chuck was already gone from the kitchen. His wife was at the sink, and she encouraged Gold to help himself, informing him that Chuck had early morning warm-ups to attend. "We live here, but we don't actually spend much time at home," she said. "Oh, and your clothes are washed and ready. Once you're done with breakfast, we'll head straight to the pharmacy. They should be open in about 20 minutes. At 8 a.m. sharp, they reached the place, Chuck's wife in the lead. It was a smaller building than Gold had imagined, for a place with such medical renown. However, it did have its own road that led straight to the docks, suggesting the regularity of shipments. Between the building and the road was a large sign, which read, 500 Years of Tradition, Cianwood City Pharmacy. Beneath the sign stood a woman, with short-cropped red hair, wearing predominantly white business casual dress. She seemed to notice the approaching customers before they did her. The woman started forward to meet them halfway, taking out a brown paper bag as she came along. Gold looked curiously at her, wondering if she was a pharmacy worker. "I was told to be on lookout so that a priority delivery could be handled on time," she explained quickly, before either of them could say anything. "Are you the party representing the gym leader?" "That'd be me." Gold held out Jasmine's order form, which he had been given on the way over. He half expected the red-headed woman to give him a skeptical look, or at least a second one. After all, Chuck had implied that possession of such potent medicine was restricted to gym leader rank or higher. But the woman didn't even ask him to sign anything. She simply took the form, passed the bag to Chuck's wife, and looked over the drug order. It felt a bit strange, but Gold shrugged it off. Perhaps it was the presence of a gym leader's spouse that had made the transaction so brief. 5 minutes later, they were at the dock. While Chuck's wife secured a ticket for the ferry, Gold waited on a bench outside, looking at the sky. There was a fair breeze today, and though some clouds drifted overhead, all were white, fluffy, and decidedly non-threatening. It made Gold think again about Spirit and Silver's battle. This might just be the weather behaving as normal, but then again, it could be a sign that the Lugia was getting tired. Did it imply anything about the Phoenix's condition? "I'm back! And it looks like we're just barely on time." Gold looked up to see his companion leaning down over him, cheerfully offering a ticket. As he took it with thanks, her smile faded, and she glanced toward the boat that would take him to Olivine Port. "Listen, Gold," she said, "with all the kids your age that are Pokemon trainers, it's easy for me to forget that you've got none to accompany you. Since this was initially my task, I can still come along with you. Honestly, I'd be okay with it, and I get to say hello to Jasmine again." Gold tilted his head. "Are you worried that Karen will show up to kidnap me?" One look at the woman's face told him that he need not have asked. Of course she was worried about that. "She's the highest ranking of the Elite Four," he reasoned. "Even if I had Pokemon, I wouldn't stand a chance if it came to battle." He waved his hands in a mollifying gesture. "How about this? I promise to stay in the presence of at least 3 adult passengers at all times. That would make her think twice. We're not a lawless nation yet." The ferry boat gave a blast of its horn, signaling a boarding call. Gold looked to it, then back to Chuck's wife, and felt an abrupt, sweet pang sting his chest. They had both been so good to him. "Thank you again," he said with some difficulty. His throat felt suddenly tight. "For everything. Taking me in from the rain, washing my clothes, feeding me, buying my ticket." His voice cracked, and he had to choke back a sob. Soon, he felt arms around his shoulders as she took him in a fierce hug. The show of tender benevolence nearly broke him, and he could barely babble out the rest of his words, though her ear was right by his mouth. "Just the small acts of kindness. I've done nothing to deserve them, but you didn't even think twice." "Shh, shh, 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 shh." She shushed him in a soothing tone. It was like the motherly affection that Spirit had shown at times, but this time with a real human. The boat sounded again, and only then did she let go. "You can do this for me," she said, putting her hands on the tops of his shoulders. "When you get to Olivine, see how Amphi's doing, and do what you can to help Jasmine. Don't leave until you have her call me to prove that you made it all right. Will you do that?" Gold nodded, wiping his face. "But have her do it on the private line, and not the gym's." The fairy's horn blared a third time, and someone shouted, "Last call for boarding!" "Go on now," said the wife, pushing Gold gently toward the boarding pier. "Be safe." "I will," he called over his shoulder, running toward the ticket man. "And I won't forget this!" Soon after boarding, Gold heard an announcement, estimating the time of the ferry's arrival to Olivine at about an hour. With that, he busied himself searching the indoor deck for the most innocuous-looking group of people he could find to sit near for safety. He was drawn to a family of 3, whose toddler son was dressed up in a Pikachu outfit and holding a birthday balloon. At first, the trio were too absorbed in looking out the window to notice him, but by and by, the father glanced at him before doing a double take. It seemed like vague recognition. His gaze had just about lingered to the point of awkwardness when an indoor television turned on automatically. The screen displayed the logo CSFS, and a female voice began to play, drawing Gold's attention. "Crystal Sea Ferry Service welcomes you. Thank you for sailing with us today. We trust that your trip will be an enjoyable experience. To ensure the safety and welfare of all our passengers, please observe the following rules while..." The father was still staring. Gold tried to smile and nod politely, and this seemed to jostle the man to his social senses. He half cleared his throat with a nervous chuckle. "Sorry about that. I feel like I know your face from somewhere." His wife, only just noticing her husband's distraction, now turned to look at Gold, smiling automatically. "Oh, hello. Yeah, come to think of it." The two turned out to be quite the talkers. They assumed that Gold was one of this year's league trainers passing through the area, and he didn't bother to correct them. In fact, he could barely get in a word edgewise after naming Cyndaquil as his desired starter Pokemon. They didn't ask his name, and he forgot theirs immediately. Between their incessant chatter and the morning news broadcast that began to play on television, it was nearly impossible for him to keep track of anything. On the one hand, it annoyed him that he could barely hear himself think. Yet, on the other hand, he could hardly have hoped for a better blend into the crowd. Still, the possibility of danger remained, and Gold remained vigilant.